So we cater to victims and their children of domestic violence in a model where we take all the services they could possibly need and put it in one place with all the service providers. We opened in May of 2006 in downtown Buffalo in a huge sprawling center with all the partners lined up down the hallway. And victims of domestic violence have many unique needs. Most don't even realize when they walk through our door or don't understand the fact that they're a victim of power and control. That's how we define it. But there's many things we can do, many things they need, and we have it right there at their fingertips. Downtown Center is gorgeous. Police are there to file charges. We have been Skyping with the judges on the bench at Family Court for emergency orders of protection since we opened in May 2006. When COVID hit, the courts, and this was a huge blessing that nobody saw coming, turned their whole protocol into teleconferencing. So emergency ex parte orders, temporary orders of protection can be done over the telephone with an advocate on the line and a judge, preventing somebody from driving downtown, hunting around for a parking spot. Sometimes it can take 4 hours, that particular exercise. Victims of domestic violence have to draft a petition that will rise to the legal level where it will get granted. They walk in clueless as to what will rise to the legal level, often with little kids in tow, and it doesn't end well. 4 hours later, they're standing there being told by a judge, denied, didn't rise to the legal level, go home, get your story straight. They're thinking, I can't even go home. My husband had me in the corner last night with his hands on my throat. He elbowed my little one. I need shelter. Now, where's that? Oh, they don't disclose publicly. Okay, I need to get this little one help. It's been a mess since he witnessed that attack last night. I need the Child Advocacy Center. Oh, shoot. I don't know if I need a referral. Oh, it's 10 to 5. It's snowing. Oh, forget that. Maybe what I need to do is get to my advocate. Oh, she told me she'd give me a safety plan when I was ready to leave. Now she's way up on Main Street by Hurdle Avenue. Traffic is going to be crazy. I'm hungry. It's snowing. What was happening prior to the Family Justice Center, people who wanted to get out or at least get their brain around what might be going on were throwing in the towel because trying to navigate these marvelous services all over Erie County was just about impossible. You need to go over here, but you have to file charges over there. Oh, but you didn't get that notarized. Oh, snow, kids. It was just easier to return to the abuse. So this model where we put everything in one place is a total game changer. And when we were able to Skype with the judges on the bench, people still had to come downtown or come to one of our satellites. Overnight, it was March 17th when we left the Family Justice Center, we literally pulled our hotline, landline phone out of the wall. Our operations manager's partner, thank you, dear God, is a tech guru. He does all the big projects for Verizon and Spectrum. He pulled an all-nighter, figured out how at 8:30 in the morning, after he threw it into a jack in his house and made some miracles happen, and then the phones would ring into their home, and again, overnight, he figured out how to roll those calls over to the personal cell phones of our 10 advocates. We had never issued company cell phones before because we've never done anything virtually or remotely. And the key is, if an abuser figures out that somebody, the victim is on the phone with somebody, they can trace it. So the key was to make sure that those phone calls couldn't be traced. Overnight, we did that with all of our partners. We woke up the next day, 8:30 in the morning, switched on the phone, and the phone started ringing. Neighborhood legal services were involved, the police were involved, the courts were involved, University of Buffalo Law School, Catholic Charities, Haven House, all of the partners literally overnight figured out a way to deliver our services remotely. This was March 18th. Within 12 days, we knew we were going to experience an uptick in calls. We were prepared for that. This is about control. All abusers are playing out of the same handbook. It's like somebody drafted a playbook on how to abuse. Isolation is a very effective tool in that toolbox. So for abusers, control freaks, to be told, okay, you're going to have to quarantine now for maybe 3 months, 6 months, however many months with your victim, that was a dream come true for abusers and a total nightmare for victims being housed in the same place. So we expected an uptick. We didn't expect what we got, a 74% skyrocketing increase in calls, 74%. We handled it. When all was said and done, at the end of the year, we went from about 3,100 new clients and return clients in 2019. In 2020, 4,331 clients. The Family Justice Center, because the courts loved us and we were ready, in position to start offering everything remotely. Chat box on our keyboard, via the telephone, virtually, if clients were so inclined. They absolutely loved it. The courts realized anytime one of our clients ran into a hiccup or a partner ran into a hiccup, we'd get a Zoom going. There were days in that first 2 months, we'd have 3 Zooms a day. Okay, we're talking to the deputy police commissioner because the police are not doing what they need to do when somebody violates an order of protection. Boom, problem solved. So it was so effective to have this model in place and all these partners already working together. But the courts loved the fact that the Family Justice Center was reliable. We figured out in about 15 minutes, yeah, okay, we can draft these orders, we can electronically file them with the courts. These are the drafts, the petitions for the orders of protection. However, they have to sign it. They have to physically sign this. And the courts didn't want people coming downtown. In 2 minutes, in one of our little Zoom calls, somebody said, all right, I have an iPhone. Boom, boom, boom. There's an app that clients can download on their phone and electronically sign them. It took about 30 seconds to figure that out. And then I don't think to this day that the courts will return to bringing back victims of domestic violence into the courts unless it's an unusual situation, because doing it over the phone, they said it's at 11 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock. And they're approved because we're drafting them, we're doing the lethality assessments. So that's a long story, is the overnight way that we actually morphed into a total remote agency. The clients loved it. We came back late August in person, opened up our doors and said, come on back. We gave people the option. You could make an appointment if you want to. Normally, in the course of the business, 12, 16 years we've been doing this, people just walk through our doors. We gave them the option. You can walk through, you could make an appointment, or you could choose to do it remotely. And between 88 and 93% of our clients and new clients continue to opt for the remote work. So we were open for probably 3 or 4 months, then we had a little COVID, couple COVID breakouts, couple COVID exposures. We have an exceptional team in place with some board members who are physicians and researchers. We decided to close again and go remote until probably May. Our 74% spike in calls continues to this day. And we think when we reopen on the other side of COVID, that our model will be issuing a hybrid of services, heavy emphasis on the remote. Our clients were doing surveys telling us they love it. The key is, so you're thinking, well, if they're homebound with these control freaks, how are you pulling this off? Many of our clients can either get downstairs, get in the bathroom, or the majority are already working with their laptops in a room. So the minute they get on the phone or on the keyboard via chat box with our advocates, we give them safety plans. All right, the user walks in the room, pretend you're talking to the teacher. There's, 15, 20 really good tools we have that we can give them that we don't present publicly when we're speaking, but it's proven very, very effective. And we've been surveying our clients over the last 10 months, almost a year now, and they're saying they love it. They love it. So much easier than trolling around for a parking spot, going in. Shame and embarrassment is a major feeling of our clients. They tell us sometimes the shame and embarrassment of what's going on can trump the fear. Believe me, I'll kill you, or I'll kill the kids, or I'll kill myself. Do you want that on our lives? And so every day we think about another better way to serve our clients. And we know that when we reopen the satellites, we have a satellite office in Orchard Park, and we have one in Williamsville, soon to be one at Trinity Methodist Church, right on their campus. When we cut the ribbon, it's just about done, and Karen and Laura will tell you about that amazing and heartwarming project with a major essential needs pantry and food bank right in the basement. But we are thriving, and knowing that there were some major blessings when it came to COVID on how to deliver services has been a game changer. And we can't wait to open on Grand Island, because we have some more plans too with support groups that we're really going to make use of at that house.
Good segue, Mary. One thing I want to pick up on that you talked about was the shame that goes with being in an abusive relationship. And that's really where my story started. I met my husband almost 10 years ago, Ken Brody from Grand Island. I was living in East Amherst. We moved to Grand Island 7 years ago. And I met Laura Mason at the Buffalo Launch Club. We became instant friends. We shared our stories. We both have a background of being in an abusive relationship prior to our current ones, thankfully. And she shared with me her story of what she had to go through as a resident of Grand Island. And she'll share a little bit of that with you today. And that story really prompted me. I had started to become very active with the Family Justice Center. I wasn't on the board at that time, but I was on a committee or two. And I started volunteering at a satellite office in East Amherst on North Forest, which I had wished was open when I needed it some 15 years previous to that. And it really sparked my interest into what's going on in Grand Island, what kind of services do we provide, what are the needs. And it was rather shocking to learn that Grand Island has the highest rate of calls to the police out of any area in Western New York for issues of domestic violence. And yet when we started to look into how the services are being handled on Grand Island, it wasn't anything that you would want yourself, your daughters, your sons, or any of your loved ones to have to go through. And so Laura will tell you a little bit about that. And then our journey to actually secure a satellite location on Grand Island has taken 3 years now. It's been a interesting 3 years, but we're seeing the light and it's just shining bright. So it's a very good story and a good ending. So Laura, if you want to say a little bit.
Sure. I've been a resident for Grand Island all my life, obviously. And my family was also had public positions on Grand Island. My father was actually a police officer here. So very briefly, I was in a relationship, well, married, and, you know, lived with domestic violence for many, many years before I actually decided to call the police. Once I did call the police, I almost instantly regretted it because I knew all of the police officers because they knew my father. And that's, you know, what we talk about, the embarrassment and the shame, you know, comes into play, is that, you know, I had gone through the process. After that point, there was no turning back. You know, they had arrested him, put him in jail. And then I had to go through, you know, I had to find someone for my children. At the time, they were very young. My youngest was 6 months old. And I didn't even really tell my parents right away. I actually talked to my ex-husband's parents. And, you know, from that point, I ended up having to go to the court system. Well, first the police had to take me down to their office. I had to get pictures taken of all my bruises. I had to fill out a form. And then I had to go through the court system on Grand Island, which, if any of you have been there, even for a parking ticket, you're in the same room with everybody. It's very open, it's very public. And I'm standing before the judge, whom I also knew was a family friend. And there were several people in the courtroom waiting for their tickets that I also knew. And they all knew why I was there, obviously, because it's so public. And at that point, they just set me up with we reconciled, we went back together. All he got was anger management classes, which I had to agree to, but they put us in the same room to be able to mediate some sort of resolution. And that was the resolution. And needless to say, you know, he did the anger management classes, but that didn't change his behavior. And then my shame and embarrassment at that point, as the domestic violence continued, became a silencer for me. I never went any further with discussion with anybody about it because I felt like I was going to be judged now for taking him back. And so that process really kept me in the relationship a lot longer than it should have. So now fast forward, and again, I met Karen, and like I said, one thing led to another. She took me to one of the Family Justice Center's fundraisers. And, you know, mind you, I had already been divorced many years, put everything behind me. And I'm sitting at the Family Justice Center breakfast listening to one of the speakers. And I felt like she was telling my story. It totally hit home with me. And I never actually considered a victim of domestic violence or anything of that nature. I really just felt like I was in a bad marriage. And so now there was this label, added to it. And I had this overwhelming emotional reaction and many mixed emotions, from, oh my gosh, this is my life. Oh my gosh, I'm a victim. Oh my gosh, now what can I do about this? And then again, there's been conversations, whether they were with Karen or with John, my now husband, or other friends, about Grand Island, and the same thing, that if the Family Justice Center had existed on Grand Island when I was going through what I went through, we wouldn't have had that public humiliation. It would have been very private, et cetera. So somehow, Karen, Kelly, myself, and John, we all started talking about how we need this on Grand Island. And it really all kind of stemmed from, conversations and my own personal experience here. And that led us to a very long, arduous process to end up at the Trinity Parsonage, and finally opening, our center very soon, and in a very collaborative way with so many individuals. It's been very heartwarming and rewarding to be able to give back, especially with everything that I've been through in the community that I grew up in.
We know we know that 1 in 3 girls in that early 10 to 12-year-old age group to 24 to 26-year-old age group, 1 in 3 girls will be a victim of an abusive relationship. 1 in 4 women, and 1 in 7 boys and men. That stat was reduced from 1 in 9 by Centers for Disease Control about 4 years ago. We speak morning, noon, nights, overnights, weekends. We've been doing it virtually prior to COVID or post-COVID. Prior to COVID, we're everywhere every day of the week. And I can tell you in no uncertain terms, it doesn't matter if we're speaking in the swankiest country club in East Amherst or Clarence at high noon on a Saturday, in the most impoverished community center in the middle of the east or west side of Buffalo, or Grand Island, or East Aurora. Those numbers play out every time we speak, everywhere we go. In some zip codes, particularly in the higher crime and poverty zip codes, those statistics are higher. These abusive relationships do not stop at any zip code or municipal line, at any level of education or affluence, at any age or race or religion or culture. We virtually see them in every segment of society. And no matter where we go, Karen and Laura do this all the time, people come up to us and share their story. Numerous times when we were in Grand Island speaking, whether it was at a church or a community organization, somebody's home, a school, particularly in the schools, we've been all over the schools. Yeah. Every time we speak, we'll get a question like, well, it doesn't really happen here, does it? And before we can even open our mouth and give an answer, sometimes it's the person who organized it. I remember at St. Stephen's Church, their beloved office manager raised her hand. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet when she said, first of all, I'm a survivor. I don't share my business with anybody, but it's important to let you know, exactly. Probably the last person, I'm the last person you would perceive to be in one of these relationships. She said, I don't share my business, but understand we need this because a lot of people right here in this very parish share their business with me. And that 1 in 4, that 1 in 7, that 1 in 3 stat is playing out right here in this church.
So the other statistic, Mary, sorry to interrupt. I want to point out too, another statistic that really has driven why we need this center on Grand Island is it can take up to 7 times for someone to permanently leave an abusive relationship. It's not something that happens overnight. As you heard Laura's story, she went back even after he was arrested. That is a common theme for a variety of reasons. And many times it is the appropriate thing to do at the time. And the advocates that we have at the Family Justice Center are very highly trained to work with people about when it is the appropriate time and how to do it. So they're not just visiting our satellite or our center once. We hope they're visiting us several times. And people have a misunderstanding of what we do. We don't shelter anyone there overnight. We are only open during the days. And we really encourage people to use us several times. There's very few times that it's just one-time visit. It's a process. And it can be very lengthy sometimes, but it has to be done very appropriately to make sure that it's done safely. And we're very proud of our statistics that if someone does come to the Family Justice Center, any of our satellites or virtually, the rate of that raising to a lethality is very low to nothing, versus if they don't know we exist and they try to work through it themselves, the lethality of that case is much higher. So part of our mission is to make sure that people know we're here, what we do, and to access us. And sometimes our name is deceiving. Well, Family Justice Center, I'm not looking for a court case or a justice, or it's not about my kids, but we want the awareness. So part of what we're doing on Grand Island is building that awareness. And I think when we look back at the 3 years of struggling to secure the site, everything has a reason, right? And so we've gained a lot of awareness through our meetings, through our dialogues, through our fundraisers at the Buffalo Launch Club. And we had an angel fall out of the sky to us at one meeting at St. Stephen's Church, where things weren't going so splendidly about trying to secure some space there. And can I say his name? He doesn't like to have any public recognition, but George Panapino was our general contractor for actually finishing the site. And he came to us because of this process. And so we were able to renovate the parsonage at Trinity for 1/10 of what it would normally have cost, because George's connections and getting people to help to do things at cost or donations. So we're very fortunate that we have had him on our team, and we have amazing volunteers. We've had people who live on Grand Island who have donated $5,000, $1,000, who have supported fundraisers to make this happen. So we really want to make this a very positive, exciting community project, and hopefully have a really nice grand opening early this summer to show that and to bring the community together in what we do.
Now, 1 penny of state money was spent on this. This was all raised on Grand Island.
Right. It was slow to start. I think it was hard to get community involvement originally, because I feel like people were not thinking that we really needed this. And, you know, I think as, you know, Karen and I and Mary continued to just push and search for a site, we got more and more community involvement as we did more and more talks. And again, like the fundraiser that we did at Buffalo Launch Club was amazing. I think I even had my eyes open to how generous everybody was for that particular fundraiser for us. So I think as we keep moving forward and get more and more awareness, we have more and more people coming up to us, asking us what they can do to help. So it's been really a good rally recently with the community too, as we get closer and closer to the opening.
In the meantime, we had space in the office medical gym. In the
big shout out to Russ Serto as well, from the Freedom Place trilogy, Grand Island Physical Therapy. He leased space to Sheridan Medical, and Sheridan Medical had allowed us to lease a couple examination rooms, which we made into what we call our living rooms for our clients. And that was very helpful to get the word out and to service those in need on Grand Island. We also found, as we started servicing people on Grand Island, that there was a lot of people who work on Grand Island that accessed our services during their lunch hour. And they were from remote areas like Wilson, New York, and places that there are no services. So when you think about our community, it's not just those that live on Grand Island and the surrounding areas. We have people from Tonawanda come as well, but it's also people who work on Grand Island who are in areas that don't have services. So it was interesting to see. Unfortunately, we're busy. You know, we would love to say we're not busy, and we sit on the board meetings and say, oh, when are we ever going to be where they don't need us anymore? You know, are we ever going to cure this disease, this problem, this issue? But the more we service, the more we know, the lower the lethality index is. And that's really what we're striving for, and the happier people's lives can become. So very proud of it. Yes.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm the superintendent of the schools. I want to thank all of you, Laura and Mary and Karen. Excellent job. I'm sure, Mary, I think you spoke at a superintendent conference day for us just a few years ago.
Correct, yes.
I'm not sure if that was the time. We hired Jessica Hutchings, who is a social worker, and she's building our family support services, suite of interventions or programs for families. Are you guys, she used to work for Kids Escaping Drugs. She was involved there for 10 years. Do you guys know Jessica?
I don't,
No.
but I'm very familiar with
should.
Kids Escaping Drugs, and the family support units are key. We work
Yeah.
very closely with family support units in different school districts around Erie County.
Great. I know that she promotes the Family Justice Center through her work here on the island. Is there, whether it's Karen or anybody, is there anybody that I should put her directly in contact
Yeah,
with?
put her right in contact with me.
Great.
I'll put my email address and my phone number and just give it to her. Yeah, we can talk. Yeah. We have a very robust outreach program in the schools.
Sure.
Yeah.
What she's been doing because of COVID, and because it's difficult to bring groups of people in, is she's been coordinating a lot of virtual webinars with Horizon Human Services.
Mhm.
So if there is an opportunity for us to promote a virtual webinar or seminar with anybody in your organization, I'm sure she would do that.
Fabulous.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I think you answered this question, whether it was Mary or Karen, but I want to make sure it's still evident. The reason why we brought you in is because we knew that Grand Island had a very high rate of domestic violence as compared to other towns and villages in Erie County. It sounds like it's still very, very high, if not the highest. Is that still accurate? It's still the highest in the county per capita?
You know what? I have not checked the number of police calls this year. We've just been so overwhelmed with calls, but I can certainly do that.
Yeah.
But traditionally, you get a high number of police calls in Grand Island.
Yeah.
And Clarence too.
Right. Okay. So, and it would just be helpful. I'm currently part of the Erie Niagara School Superintendents Association, and we're writing letters to our state officials talking more and more about the importance of the state changing their guidance with respect to physical distancing in schools so that we can have more opportunities for kids to come to school 5 days as opposed to in the hybrid model. And we've been citing, mental health as one of the key reasons why we need the state to change their guidance. But if there was any other little bits of data with respect to trauma and particularly domestic violence, we might be able to use that as another tool in advocating for the state to make changes to their guidance so that we can see kids and bring them out of homes where they may be involved with witnessing domestic violence or other abusive issues.
I can give you some stats and some stories of what our outreach coordinator in the schools has seen. So I'll just put my email in the chat box.
So there's a question
I don't
on
know
the
if you
chat.
caught the 74% increase in calls during this pandemic as compared to other years. So 74% increase.
Right. Thank you.
So we have a question from Bassi for Tonawanda. He's interested in how does North Tonawanda relate to the percentage of clients versus Clarence and Grand Island?
I don't have those stats in front of me, but we survey everybody that comes in. Tonawanda and North Tonawanda do have a YMCA domestic violence agency there, but most of those clients we will see at our Williamsville satellite and sometimes downtown. So I don't know. We have those stats. I just don't have them at my fingertips.
Bassi, I can give you Mary's contact if you'd like to follow up with that question.
Sure. Thank you.
And Dick?
Yeah, I have a question in relation to, you sound like you're very close to completing this with the convent and all this. We initially had some thoughts of sponsoring a room, and I don't know where that went. Do you need any hands-on help to finish up, or is George pretty much in control of that?
George is fabulous. George has pretty much finished up with everything that he's going to do to the interior, and he also did foundation work and outside cement work. we're going to enter the phase now of the finishing touches. And I don't know if people have time. I have some pictures I can show you of the before and after of where we are in the house. We are looking for finishing touches for window treatments, things of that nature. And then as spring approaches, landscaping, porch furniture, different things like that is going to be
It's
needed.
more of an acquisition type of thing rather than, and with donations rather than hands-on, or a combination, or what?
We could have both.
Combination.
It could be a combination. Yeah, it could be a combination. Yeah.
So a lot of us are familiar with, the mission of Justice Center. Part of what I wanted to do was inviting you here was to give us that update of where concretely are you in terms of finishing the project, and where could Rotary potentially be of assistance?
Sure. I think we could certainly use people, like I said, for just the finishing touches that we need to do, things on the walls, food pantry items. We're going to have a full food pantry in the basement, which is in the mission also with Trinity too. And I don't know if Laura wants to talk about that, but that's one of the beauties of having the satellite in conjunction with Trinity and the community outreach that, we're going to be serving the community. And the other things are definitely outside. We're going to need some landscaping. We're going to need some outdoor furniture. We'd like a little patio set in the back for our advocates maybe to have lunch at, little things like that. So there's things that could be purchased or bought, or there also could be some hands-on things. And we're always continuing.
Right, Karen? We had a bunch of volunteers in there 2 Saturdays ago. Karen and Laura were leading the way there, and they assembled all the furniture that had been delivered in big, huge boxes.
Yeah.
So every room is pretty much done.
Are you looking for something like to put your footprint on where people know that you're actively involved in that? Because if that's the case, then I would be all for doing the outside landscaping and then, putting a little sign out there that it was donated, by your services. And, and the upkeep and the beautification of the outside would be absolutely wonderful.
So is there a landscape company that has volunteered to assist and that would actually do the design work, where we would then support that with the covering the cost and perhaps volunteers for plantings?
We didn't secure that yet. That was next on the list.
I can find someone though. I know the owner of Wayside.
Mm-hmm.
And
we were that's like next on our list. Yeah, that would be something that we could get someone to work with you.
By and and you can come as well, Sherry, since you're and we can plan a date where he can come and he did it with me at the launch club, walk the grounds and work collaboratively within your budget and what you are actually looking for, and then working together and coming up with a plan.
And George Panapinto has sort of set the scene with a beautiful new fencing and some stonework, and he's got a vision. And then we have a gorgeous sign being built as we speak. That's marble and all sorts of stone. It's going to be in the front, and that's going to be lit and will need to be landscaped as well. So George also has a vision too.
Right.
Okay, and I actually have been reaching out to the garden clubs on Grand Island to look for an opportunity for Rotary and the garden clubs to work together on some kind of project.
Perfect.
That'd be perfect.
Perfect, actually, yes. And I know a few people from the garden club too. So, we can all work together. Karen, you, myself can come up with a date before the opening and kind of coordinate all of that.
Yep, I'll follow up with you, Laura, then.
Okay.
Yep, Dick?
Yeah, I have another question in relation to you have restraining orders and things like that, but and you don't provide housing for the families that are suffering these problems. So do you make arrangements for them to stay someplace, or how is that handled?
Yes, we have a very close partnership with Haven House. Only about 3% of clients want emergency shelter, but we do the intakes right out over the phone, and we can whisk them right to Haven House. Most opt to do something else. And especially since COVID has hit, we've gotten 2 major emergency housing grants so that we can put them in a hotel. We can pay first couple months rents for a new place. We can do down payments. If a perpetrator took off and somebody's behind on their rent, we can help pay the rent and the utilities. So that's something that we have right at our fingertips, the money and the resources. And we have a relationship with several of the hotels where we can call them and say, this person is coming in under the name of, we give them, we have all sorts of code names and everything is taken care of.
Excuse me, what happens if the parent is working and they have young children? What kind of child care is there?
Whatever it is they need, we help with.
We also help with pets. We have a
Yeah,
association with the SPCA for
And we
foster
have-
care for pets. A lot of times they can't bring the pet with them or the pet's being threatened. And so, yeah, I
some
mean,
of
we
them-
try to do all needs.
And some of them stay because they don't have a place for their animals. And actually, the pet lodge right over on Elvin, I had a conversation with the owner there, and he is willing for our Grand Island residents to lodge some of those animals temporarily
If needed,
for our victims. And I don't know, Mary, and we had talked about this in the past, if there's some sort of agreement that we have to work with, or logistics about that, but that's something that's in the works too.
We have a grant right now. We're working very closely with the SPCA, and we actually have therapy dogs on site downtown for clients who opt for that loving, healing animal, and that's been a game changer. But we have some money from the Oshai Foundation to actually house them and work with some of the dog supply stores for food and actual little cages, that kind of thing, when they have to put them somewhere else. But right now we are working with Orchard Park Wesleyan Church in Orchard Park. They have a beautiful house on the campus. It's now empty. It's being totally renovated for short-term housing for clients who can move in with their kids, one family at a time with children. It's beautiful. We're working with Orchard Park Police to get all the security features in place. We're hoping to have that ready by summer as well.
Because this is such an important topic, I've let you run over, but we're running short. So I want to give, I know Brian had one more question, and then Mike, and that's going to be it.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Just to help respond to Dick too, for school age children who are also displaced due to domestic violence, it's a law that we have to follow the McKinney-Vento Act and make sure that we provide transportation and maintain the students at their school. So if there was a family that was moved off island due to domestic violence, we would go to wherever they are, pick them up and bring the child to school to maintain that consistency.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to know. That's great to know.
Didn't know that, actually.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
No, me neither. Because so many families, the reason they don't want to go to Haven House is because they want to keep their kids in the school district.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's called the McKinney-Vento Act, and it's about homelessness. So some people forget that homelessness doesn't mean that you're living on the street. It's mean that you're living in a place that you don't legally have access to. You don't have you don't own that place, right? So so if a family is displaced for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be just domestic violence. By law, we have to make sure that that child can continue to go to school in the school that they were originally in. Some families will choose to enroll in a different school district, but by law, we have to do that. So it's the McKinney-Vento Act, and I'd be happy to give you more information if you need it.
I put my email in there, so if you could just dash that off in the email, that would be great. And I'll give it to our operations manager today. Thank you so much for that, Brian.
Mary, I just want to congratulate you. I've talked to you from when you started here, and you truly are an angel for this community. And unfortunately, there's a need, and you're filling that need. And I can't thank you enough for all that you and your whole team is doing. So whatever
Mike, I just duck. And Karen and Laura and their team, they're angels and miracle workers, and the community. Actions speak louder than words. By the time we found the parsonage, There's $100,000 in our kitty that Karen and Laura and their team had raised through the community. I think that says it all.